Welcome back to our channel. I did a whole ass intro without recording my stupid ass. uh, yeah, we are watching What If Every State Fought Each Other by Last Brain Cell, which I have. So I wanted to watch this one because I feel like it's relevant to the times now, living in the U.S. I feel like it can collapse any moment at this time, and honestly, I would not be surprised. Let's hear about why the New York would win because I'm a New Yorker. I bleed New York. That was corny. All right, let's get into the video. Oh, before the video gets started, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. We're on the road to 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and it'll be great. It'll be fantastic if we reach that goal, but I need your help, so let's make it work.
United States 2025. The federal government collapses. Power falls to the states. That means every base, every port, every airfield inside their borders is now under local control. National Guard units, police forces, even Coast Guard ships, all of it now answers to the state where it sits. At first, some smaller states call for alliances. Others move fast.
I feel like immediately New York would go to New Jersey. Have to. I mean, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, obviously. Maybe Vermont. I don't know. But those four, I mean Pennsylvania. Those 4 or 5 states. I feel like that's a solid team right there. Because you have to contend with Texas, California, and maybe Chicago. Not Chicago, Illinois. Other than that, I feel like we can sweep our coalition, our Northeast coalition.
As they understand that whoever seizes the most fuel, food, and factories will decide the future. And so, the clashes begin. So the question is, which state ends up on top? And remember, this is just a sandbox scenario. Thanks. On the West Coast, California rises as an immediate giant.
Obviously.
San Diego alone homeports 3 aircraft carriers, a huge Marine Corps base, and a major slice of the Pacific Fleet. Washington adds Trident submarines at Naval Base Kitsap Bangor, and the Army and Air Force mass at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Oregon contributes airfields and guard brigades. Together, the coast inherits high-tech industry, major ports, and tens of thousands of active duty troops. But there's a catch. Oil. California's Navy looks unbeatable. Until you remember fuel. Texas pumps over 10 times as much oil, and without imports, California's carriers and jets run dry fast. The South, by contrast, is swimming in fuel. Texas alone has the largest National Guard in the country, about 20,000 strong, plus 2 heavy Army divisions at Fort Hood and Fort Bliss. Dice Air Force Base gives them B-1 bombers, long-range strike aircraft able to reach across continents. Add Oklahoma, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, and Virginia, and suddenly the South controls the world's largest naval base at Norfolk, the 2nd Marine Division at Camp Lejeune, and Gulf refineries that keep jets and tanks roaring. On paper, the Southern Coalition looks unstoppable. The Midwest.
I forgot about the oil part of it. I forgot about the oil part of it.
Starts smaller but sits on critical assets. Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri flies B-2 stealth bombers. Lima, Ohio keeps the Abrams line rolling, while Detroit retools for trucks, armor kits, and components. And most important,
B-2 bombers might be the way to go. It's like bomb the shit out of their cities. Because yeah, you have the fuel, but like a few bombing runs, I feel like the Midwest can definitely destroy Texas.
This region feeds the rest of the country. Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, and Nebraska control America's corn and wheat. The Midwest may not start with the biggest army, but it can feed one forever. The Northeast holds important pieces too. New York has the 10th Mountain Division and attack drones in its guard. Vermont's Guard flies F-35 stealth fighters. Connecticut has the submarine base at Groton. But the region has almost no oil, little farmland, and no way to sustain a long war. Their only hope is forming alliances or defending their cities with sheer stubbornness. As for the small population states, Wyoming, despite its size, Delaware, Rhode Island, they risk getting absorbed in days. Within the first week, the country condenses into 4 mega blocks. The West Coast Federation, California, Oregon, Washington, joined by Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico. They know they need each other to hold the Pacific and counter Texas's power. The Southern Coalition. Texas pulls together Oklahoma, Arkansas.
See, I feel like immediately you would know Texas and the South would be on some shit, dude. Because the West immediately comes together, the East immediately comes together. But, like, I don't know. The South is just, like, I feel like Texas would, like, immediately try to, like, do some bullshit. Especially Florida. Ugh.
Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, and Virginia.
Damn.
The Midwest Union. Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, and the Dakotas pledged to defend the breadbasket together. And the Northeast Alliance. New England, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, clinging to survival along the I-95 corridor. But not everyone makes it. By the end of week
Damn.
1, the South seizes Maryland and Washington, D.C. Delaware is absorbed instantly.
That
The
makes sense.
Mason-Dixon line becomes a front line again. The first bigger clashes start within weeks. On the Great Plains, Kansas becomes America's Kursk. Texas armored divisions sweep north along the I-30.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that reference. Kursk. Sounds familiar. Is that Yeah, no clue. No clue.
corridor overrunning Wichita. Midwest defenders fall back to Kansas City, blowing bridges and using the Missouri River as a shield. Weeks of tank battles rage until the front stalls in the Kansas City suburbs. In the Southwest, California pushes Marines across the Colorado River into Arizona. They seize Hoover Dam, but it doesn't connect to Texas's power grid.
Oh,
so
yeah,
the
Texas
South
has a
keeps
separate
running,
power
while
grid, right?
California bleeds resources holding the desert. Texas armor races out of Fort Bliss, colliding with them near Albuquerque. Urban combat around Kirtland Air Force Base turns into a nightmare. The West barely holds. But the desert front stalls out with neither side able to move forward. In the Rockies, Texas drives into eastern Colorado, aiming for the Denver area's Suncor refinery complex. At first, they roll through the flat plains, but once they climb toward Colorado Springs, the mountain passes become death traps. Western Allied mountain troops ambush convoys in narrow canyons. The Rockies turn into a fortress the South can't crack. And on the East Coast, the South pushes up I-95. The 82nd Airborne and Marines spearhead the advance. Philadelphia comes under heavy artillery fire. Suburbs burn, and Atlantic-based Navy forces out of Norfolk, U.S. Fleet Forces and 2nd Fleet, tighten a blockade on New York Harbor. But the Northeast digs in. Pennsylvania's Guard and local militias turn Philadelphia into a fortress.
That's right. Let's go
The
northeast.
South reaches the outskirts, but the city refuses to fall. By month 3, the fight
Damn.
isn't about who has the most tanks. It's about who can still keep them running. The South controls about half of America's oil. Its refineries keep Southern tanks and jets running at full speed. The West and Northeast ration every drop. California tries bringing
Can we just trade with, like, Europe? Doesn't Canada have reserves? We're, like, right on the border with Canada. We can just, like, trade with Canada. And the West Coast can get theirs from, a few places, really. Russia, China, the Middle East. It'd be a longer route, but, you know.
in oil from Alaska and Latin America, but
Alaska?
Southern warships target the tankers at sea.
Oh, shit.
New York City and Boston go dark for days at a time,
Yikes.
surviving on Canadian power sent through Vermont and New York.
See?
The Midwest controls the Farm Belt. Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska stockpile corn and wheat, cutting off shipments to the South as shortages start to bite. Meanwhile, the West makes a deal. They send high-tech drones and electronics, and in return, the Midwest sends grain north by rail. That quiet partnership keeps both blocks alive. Industry drives the map even further. In the Midwest, Detroit shifts to building trucks and armor kits, while Lima, Ohio keeps the tank lines rolling. Out west, Silicon Valley becomes the center for drones and cyber warfare. The South turns out ships and aircraft and runs big chip plants in Texas.
What about
But
us?
the most advanced tech still comes from Oregon and Arizona. Spare parts for aircraft are short
Damn, we're not even in, like, mentioned the Northeast. Golly.
everywhere, so all sides start stripping old planes and electronics just to keep the rest running. In the end, the South relies on numbers, while the North leans on technology.
Okay.
At their peak, the South controls 2/3 of America.
Fuck.
New York is under siege.
No.
Kansas City is lost, and their tanks push into St. Louis. But the bigger they grow, the thinner their lines stretch. Convoys are ambushed in Missouri. Guerrillas blow up depots in Kentucky. The advance stalls. The West shifts to fast mobile attacks. Instead of crossing into Baja, with Mexico staying neutral, Marines use helicopters and aircraft to leap over the Colorado River, seizing crossings near Yuma and Parker before driving on Phoenix from the west. At the same time, mountain troops push through Utah and New Mexico, forcing the South back. At their peak, West Coast forces even reach Oklahoma City and El Paso, threatening Dallas itself. But their supply lines stretch too far across deserts and mountains. The advance grinds to a halt. The Midwest joins the counterattack. They retake Kansas, storm St. Louis, and even capture Louisville, Kentucky. For the first time, the South loses ground in bulk. Midwestern morale soars, but they lack the strength to push deeper. The Northeast, long battered, finally strikes back.
Let's go.
With Southern forces overstretched, they counterattack from New Jersey. Philadelphia is liberated, block by block. It's a massive morale boost, but the advance stalls in Maryland. After years of grinding war, two possible endings emerge.
Okay.
The first, and most likely, is a Southern victory. Even battered, the South still holds the oil, the refineries, and the population pool. The West and Midwest alliance cracks under pressure. Midwestern states, sick of destruction, sign a ceasefire with the South in exchange for autonomy and trade. California is isolated, cut off from food and fuel.
Wow.
The South masses its armies, smashing through the desert into Los Angeles and the Central Valley. Once California falls, the rest of the West surrenders. The Northeast, starved by blockade, collapses soon after. The South dictates terms and builds a new union in its own image. There is, however, one
Well, let's hope that never happens.
an alternative. If the West, Midwest, and Northeast manage to unite under one command, they could still win. Imagine a three-front assault. Midwest tanks pushing through Tennessee, West Coast Marines striking Texas from the west, and Northeast troops holding Southern forces in place along the Atlantic. At the same time, special forces hit the Gulf refineries. If Houston and Baton Rouge go up in flames, the South runs out of fuel. Their armies, stretched deep into the plains and the Appalachians, come to a standstill. Surrounded and cut off, Southern strongholds from Atlanta to Dallas fall one after another. Either way, the old United States is gone. In its place, burned out cities, shattered farmland, and one coalition standing over what's left. The victory doesn't look like parades. It looks like ration cards, blackouts, and guerrilla uprisings. The real deciding factor isn't tanks or carriers. It's whether the alliances can hold together under pressure. And what about you? Which side would you put your bet on? If you want more, check out what happens when an Apache helicopter fights in the Vietnam War.
What? What? Man, that was a brain rot video. If I've ever seen one. Yeah, a little fun video. Obviously, Northeast will win because, you know, we got New York City. Yeah, that was a video. Let's see the comments. It gets messy when you realize the servicemen would be loyal to their home state and not where they're currently posted. That is true. Meanwhile, Hawaii just keeps chilling and eating pineapples. What the fuck? One major factor you didn't include is how many fireworks are owned. Oh, firearms are owned by people in the South. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, fireworks. What? The South gets the band back together? Whoa, what do you mean by that? Well, a fun concept. Fact is, the U.S. split and started fighting itself. California will be waving a Chinese flag in a week and hosting 500,000 Red Army soldiers. Scary part is every time we look at the news, the situation is looking more and more likely. Is it possible? No. I don't think that'll happen. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Riveting, right? Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Remember, we are on the road to 500 subscribers by the end of the year. So be a part of the journey and subscribe. And with that being said, I will see you later. Peace.